Ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
Lyrically, I'm untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600. Untouchable, uncrushable. Running in a 600, running in a 600.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode here of Punch the Face Radio. I am your host, Brandon Stubbs. Appreciate you joining me this evening. Tonight, we will talk about Hall of Fame ballots, Cotto versus Ali. Oh, yeah, that's going to be a fun rant. As well, talk about the massive triple header at 154 on Showtime here this weekend. And also, granted he missed last week live, we do have an interview with Austin Trout that will air here on tonight's show. So, if you want to be a part of the show, you can call in if you're listening live right now. Area code 929-477-3165. You can tweet me throughout the show at Brandon P2TF. And as well, make sure you follow me on Twitter, Brandon P2TF. So, I'm going to rant about Cotto later, so I'm going to save up for that one. And that's going to be a fun rant. I'm just going to put that out there now. But I will talk about, we've got a massive triple header this Saturday live on Showtime that I'm actually pretty stoked about for a couple of reasons. For one, we've got three title fights at 154. And if you listen to last week's fall fight preview extravaganza with me and Adam Abramowitz, we talked about this card. So we're excited about it because it's three title fights, three champions defending their belts, which anymore is starting to become rarer and rarer, and three kind of intriguing bouts that we don't know. We don't have an idea. We don't know how a couple of them are going to play out. So we're excited about that from that aspect. And for me personally, this is going to be the first time in about 3 to 4 years I'm actually going to be able to watch a fight on Showtime television, on a television in my home, because I've cut Showtime off. So I didn't have Showtime for the longest. I was being cheap and bootlegging the fight. So this is going to be the first card in a long time I'm actually going to watch live on regular Showtime on the television in my home. Go figure. So I am excited about that from that aspect. That's the small things in life, folks. Don't judge me. So, from that aspect, I'm excited about it. But more importantly, like I said, it's title fights. And despite what a lot of people may say or may think, titles do matter. And we've got three of them on the line with three fights that we just don't know how they're going to play out. Now, me and Adam did give our picks here last week. We both like Anderson Lara over Terrell Gausha. We both picked Jermell Charlo over Erickson Lubin just for the simple fact of, we both said the same thing. We got to look at the experience and look at the resume. We don't know if Lubin's biting off more than he can chew this early on in his career. And we both like Trout kind of for the same reasons over Jarrett Hurd, like we like Charlo over Lubin. It's just the experience factor. And you'll hear that side of it from Austin Trout when this interview airs here in a few moments. But, it's interesting that we get the IBF, the WBC, and the WBA titles all on the line, also an IBO title as well. So we have all of the relatively, let me rephrase that, all of the champions there at 154 fighting each other and fighting legitimate contenders there within the division, which, leads me to believe that we're going to get some sort of, winner's bracket possibly facing each other. We don't know, and that's something I also posed to Austin that you'll hear here in a few moments. But it makes for some exciting times, and it makes for some interesting situations that could possibly play out going into 2018. Now, like I said, we've got, three of the four champions who hold belts fighting here on Saturday on Showtime. Miguel Cotto's the other one who holds the WBO title, 154. I will get into that later as well. But see, all of this all kind of ties in because Cotto's going to be exiting here at the end of the year. We have Jarrett Hurd, who's a young champion. You have Anderson Lara, who a lot of people look at maybe the most purest boxer left in boxing today that isn't named Floyd Mayweather or Guillermo Rigondeaux. He's looked upon, or Andre Ward. With Ward and Floyd both retiring, that leaves Rigondeaux and Lara as being the two guys that people look at as being the best boxers there are. So you have him there. You have Jermell Charlo. There's the WBC champion. All these three guys want to be the face of 154 now that Floyd's exited, got his money. Miguel's going to be exiting this year. But then you have guys like Austin Trout, who has been a champion before, has had some big fights, and wants that taste again. You have a guy like Erickson Lubin, who is extremely young. I think Lubin's only 22, young guy. Yeah, he's 22, young guy, less than 20 career fights. But, a title victory here this Saturday would springboard him. He could really and genuinely and honestly be a face of boxing for the next 10 years. No disrespect to any other champions, but just saying in general. At 22 and being a champion, winning a title belt that young, he could be a face if marketed correctly. You have a guy like, Terrell Gausha, who, has the amateur pedigree. He's, done his thing in regards to Olympics and all that kind of stuff in amateur boxing. That would be a good story. And at age 30, granted it's not old in boxing terms, but at age 30, is he reaching his peak? Is he going to have be on the downside of his career going forward? Will it be another title fight after this Saturday? So you have 6 gentlemen who have 6 different stories and 6 different reasons as to why this card is important and why this is a fun card and really should be a good card to watch for boxing fans. I don't see this being a shitty card. There's no chance with 3 title fights, all 3 of them just being awful. I can't see that. Stranger things have happened, but, they just don't see it. Now, we put up the Punch to the Face radio poll here earlier today, and, the question was pretty simple. Which will be the fight of the night come Saturday amongst these 3? We have Anderson Lara, Gausha, Charlo Lubin, and Hurd versus Trout. And right now, the poll isn't closed, but right now, leading the pack, and I can see this, is going to be Lubin, Charlo. It has 78% of the votes as being the best fight of the night, 15% to Hurd and Trout, and 7% to Anderson Lara Gausha, which is interesting. I've already got some backlash on Twitter saying, why would anybody ever vote for Anderson Lara being in an exciting fight of the night type of fight? But it's been nights that we've seen Lara completely stink it up and be boring out there. We've seen other nights where Lara has kind of brought a little bit of drama to the show, if you will, and had good fights. The Trout fight, the Cotto Alvarez fight were both fun fights I enjoyed. It's one of the fights that I really hang my hat on and say that was more maybe his most weirdest performance. And a win was a TKO win over Alfredo Angulo back in 2013. I mean, we saw that he could crack because he pretty much broke up Angulo, but we also showed that he can get knocked down and he can also take punches as well. So, take nothing away from him from that. That was a fun fight. One of those things very uncharacteristic for him, but also something I want to point out with that is that Lara has a tendency at times to fight down to his opponents. And if he doesn't take this fight seriously, you never know. I mean, this is boxing. One punch can change a lot of different things out there. But I do look for him to win. But like I said, man, we've got 6 different aspects, six different viewpoints, 6 different ways Saturday could be interesting. So we're going to hear from one of those 6 voices here who's going to be part of the card, and that is Austin Trout, the former 154-pound champion. I want to say he won a IBF title. Former champion. Like I said, man, the guy's a fighter, and this is going to be his first fight in almost 18 months. He's been out of the ring. Last time we saw him was in a fight that he lost against Jermall Charlo here back in May of last year. Kind of came on back half the fight. Like I said, it was a competitive fight, but he came up short. But, nevertheless, he's back. He's in another title fight right off the bat because that was such a close competitive fight. So, here is my interview with no doubt Austin Trout here on Punch the Face Radio. All right, our guest is Austin Trout, who will be taking on Jarrett Hurd here Saturday night live on Showtime. Austin, we appreciate you taking out time here on Punch to the Face Radio.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Now, this matchup with Hurd, I kind of want you to maybe put your commentator hat on because you've done that here for PBC. When you look at Jarrett Hurd, kind of say this maybe from a commentator aspect. When you look at Hurd as a fighter, what do you see as his strengths and his weaknesses as a up-and-coming fighter here in the 154-pound division?
Well, like you said, switching to my commentating hat and being very unbiased, which is hard to do, seeing that that's my opponent, but I'm going to try my best. For his strength is his strength. He's strong. He has his size. He's a big junior middleweight. He overpowers and out-hustles a lot of his fighters. And I would think that would be his biggest strength. As far as weaknesses, for me, I think it's his footwork is his weakness and his defense. And that also comes into play with his experience or lack of. So, physical attributes are there. We don't know if the mental or the skills are quite there yet.
Now, when you look at Hurd as a young fighter, and for you being a veteran, is it kind of crazy for this being his first opportunity to defend his title that they're kind of throwing him to the wolves, if you will, because you're a legit guy. I mean, most guys get more softer touches we've seen with some PBC fighters, but you've got a golden opportunity to really take advantage of this young guy here in his first title defense.
Absolutely, and that's what we plan on doing, is taking full advantage of the opportunity. But at the same time, you have to give respect to a champion like Hurd. He didn't ask for no easy route. In fact, he took a tough challenge as myself. I'm never an easy case to solve, nor, I'm also a tough cookie to crack. So, shout out to Hurd for making this fight happen. He asked for it, and definitely going to make him regret for asking for it, but at the same time, I respect him to the fullest, because you don't see fights like that. You see guys take the easy ways out until the money piles up.
Absolutely. Now, like I said, it's a mega triple header here on Showtime. We got 3 title fights here at 154. Yourself and Hurd. We have Lara versus Gachet. We have Charlo versus Lubin. Now, when this was made, for starters, I got to say, as a fan first, we were shocked that we get 3 title fights all in one, which in itself is crazy. But one question I do have is, was there any discussion or is there any sort of framework to where, the winners may face each other? Is this some sort of de facto round-robin tournament that's maybe being put in place by, all you guys fighting on the same card here come Saturday night?
Well, I sure hope so, because one of my goals is to be undisputed champion, and it'd be great to not only get one belt, but then go on and get the other belts. So there has been no promises. There's been no necessary serious talks about what happens next, and I'm not even really worried about what's coming next. All I need to worry about right now is Jarrett Hurd, because if I don't get past him, then nothing's next. So I plan on capturing the IBF, and then after we win that, we will go and talk with our team and try to get the other belts.
Now, speaking with your team, and, obviously you got Hurd here next. We've seen, you say in a couple interviews about, the time away, but what in the world has kept you focused as a fighter, between the time out? I mean, it's looking at almost close to 18 months since the last time we saw you in a fight. So, how in the world had you stayed focused and even wanted to continue to fight after being out of the ring a year and a half?
Well, being in the gym has been a blessing, and I'm definitely glad I stuck in the gym. There's been a few different motivations. I was hoping the fight would land soon since my last fight. So, I was kind of in the gym, kind of staying prepared for that. Also, a bit of vanity, I must admit. I don't like getting fat, and I get fat fast now. Ever since I turned 30, it seems like the six-pack goes away much sooner than it should. So, between trying to stay ready for a fight and trying to keep my beach body intact, those kept me in the gym.
Now, I can totally understand that. I'm 35, and trust me, it doesn't get any easier as you get older. It does not get easier. Now, with that being stated, the time away, but you also got an opportunity to, like I said, do some commentating throughout this last year and a half. Is that something that you're maybe looking forward to doing more of, not only as an active fighter, but is that going to be something you're going to look at as a career post-fighting? Because I'm not going to lie, you're really good at it and really break down the fights and do it in such a very calm and clear manner compared to some of our other fighters of your contemporary era who get on the mic.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me, first of all. But I would love to do that some type of commentating post-fight. Because, listen, I could talk about boxing all day, and if you get me started, it's hard to shut me up. And I really am a fan and a student of the sport. So the commentating would definitely be something I'm looking forward to. But boxing is still my first love and my first job.
Now, like I said, your last time you're out, in the ring was almost 18 months ago, but it was against one of the Charlo brothers, and Lord forgive me, I get them confused, so I just refer to him as one of the Charlo brothers because there's multiple of them. But, that was a very close fight that some people thought you did a lot towards the back end of the fight to win. Is that something that, what did you learn from that fight? And is that something to where you'd ever maybe want to think about chasing him down for a rematch now that he's moved up to 160?
Well, I'm down for all my rematches. And Charlo's a rematch that I'm looking forward to. But first things first, I got clean with the junior middleweight division. I learned a lot from that fight. One of the things I learned is that as big as Charlo was, he wasn't able to bully me or push me around. And second is I got to start early. I started a little bit too late, which is why people think that he may have won the fight. And had I started a bit earlier, I feel like I would have solidified that win.
Now, look at your resume, and I got to say this, as everyone who knows listens to the show is, I'm a huge Miguel Cotto fan, so you're the first ever Miguel Cotto opponent to appear on the show. That in itself is history in itself, so I'm just going to point that out, but,
Hey.
but I gotta say this, as we were doing research for you to coming on the show, your resume, it's stellar, man. Like, have you ever really sat back and just kind of looked at the game and looked at your career and be like, man, I've accomplished a lot and I still have a lot more to go?
Well, I am proud of my accomplishments, but at the same time, I don't dwell on them because, like you said, there's a lot more to accomplish. If I'm just stuck off my last great win, that's going to be my last great win. So I'm always looking to add another great win to my belt after 14th.
All right, now I do got to get your prediction here on the two other fights on the card that you're on here on Saturday, live on Showtime. Who are you liking with Lara versus Gachet, and who are you liking with Charlo versus Lubin?
I like Lara because he's just too smart. He's real smart. Gachet, he's got somewhat of the youth, but not really age-wise, more as boxing-wise. He's youthful. But, Lara, he's a tough cookie to crack, man. And with the Charlo Lubin, that's really a toss-up fight. I'm leaning towards Charlo due to the experience. And seeing that we haven't had any answers from Lubin yet because he hasn't fought necessarily any stellar competition, so to speak. But the kid's impressed me every time I've seen him. And I've been blessed to call his fights a few times. So the Charlo Lubin fight is really you pick him. Leaning a little more towards Charlo because he seems to get better every fight.
Absolutely. I think you're kind of dead on this, the way I kind of called Lubin and Charlo as well. It's a real pick-em fight, but I'm just going Charlo just simply based off experience, and we've seen just more of him compared to Lubin. So I agree with you there, Austin. Now, shout out to you for coming on and doing the show, but make sure you let the fans know where they can follow and keep up the tabs with you here during Fight Week.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. At No Doubt Trout, same as Instagram, same as Facebook, Facebook.com/No Doubt Trout.
Again, Saturday night, triple header on Showtime. 3 title fights at 154. Austin Trout's looking to gain another belt to add to his stellar resume. Yes, sir, you have a stellar resume, and this is coming from a Miguel Cotto fan. So for me to say that, it hurts a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I'm no longer bitter behind that loss that Cotto suffered. But, you've went on to do some great things and more great things ahead of you. And best of luck here come Saturday night. We'll be all tuned into Showtime to see if you can gain another belt.
Yeah, absolutely, and I will, and I'll be ready to come back on the show with the "I told you so." Not that you doubted me, but there's a lot of doubt out there. But thank you for having me.
Well, absolutely, man. Again, best of luck, and we'll see you Saturday night live on Showtime. All right, again, big thank you to Austin No Doubt Trout. No, I do not doubt him. I think he's going to be able to get the job done here Saturday night on Showtime. And like I said, coming from a Miguel Cotto fan, I'm no longer bitter behind that L he handed out to Miguel. But, Austin Trout, hell of a humble guy, great interview. He's welcome back anytime. And I definitely look forward to watching him do work here on Saturday night, which is now a perfect segue into, as I mentioned in the interview there, Miguel Cotto. Now, as we all know, Miguel Cotto has made it clear that 2017, it is his farewell tour. He is done boxing. It's over. No more. It's a wrap. So as of December 31st, he will no longer be an active fighter. So, we wondered after his fight, his last fight with, forget the guy's name. Give me a moment, but I'll remember here in a second. But after his last fight, we all kind of wondered, well, what's going to be next for Miguel Cotto? We really we had theories, but we didn't know. Yoshio Kamagai, that's who he fought. So after he fought Kamagai here back into August, we kind of wondered, okay, what's next for Miguel? What is he going to do? We knew we had a big middleweight fight between Canelo and Triple G a couple weeks after his fight. All right, well, he could possibly face the winner. And then that fight went to a draw. So the next obvious pick was going to be, David Lemieux. David Lemieux made sense because they're both under the Golden Boy umbrella. Why not David Lemieux? Well, that didn't happen. Mikey Garcia had talked crazy earlier this year and said, hell, he could go up to fight Miguel Cotto, which we all thought was kind of a novelty joke. But when contracts actually came around to Mikey was like, nah, I don't want to do what you're trying to do, go boy, which I'll elaborate on here in a few moments. So what do we end up getting instead? Miguel's final fight in Madison Square Garden here on December 2nd will be against Saddam Ali. Yes, folks, that's Saddam Ali. So I know a lot of people right now are kind of like me saying this.
Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer than what I'm going to give here tonight. Here's the thing. Saddam Ali, let me first start with him. Saddam Ali is not a horrifically bad fighter. He's 25-1. He's 29 years old, still young in his boxing career. 14 KOs. His one loss is a knockout loss to Jesse Vargas. And that was here March of last year. But since then, he's riddled off 3 straight victories, 2 unanimous decisions and a knockout with those. But he's never faced any really top-tier competition. Jesse Vargas is far and away the toughest opponent he's had throughout his career. And when he actually stepped up, he got knocked out in a very spectacular fashion at that. So there's that from Ali's side. And Ali's also a Golden Boy fighter. So we have to say that, with all respect there. Now, Mikey Garcia, like I said, was offered the fight. But the caveat to it was that Golden Boy told him, hey, we want you to sign a fight deal with us. You want to sign a multi-fight deal. I think it was 2 or 3 fights. After this fight, you'd possibly get Linares if Linares is still the champion. But we want to promote you. And Mikey Garcia likes the freedom he currently has where he's technically a free agent. And, he just kind of likes working on his fight-by-fight deal with Al Heyman, the PBC company. So Mikey said no. So Mikey got turned down. It was then reported here, as the Ali fight got made official, that Danny Garcia was offered the fight and he turned it down. And also Jesse Vargas was offered the fight and he turned it down. Now, as far as their specifics in regards to why both those gentlemen turned it down, I can't answer. We don't know if it was a money thing, if it was they're trying to get him signed, It probably was a money thing because Vargas is with Top Rank. We know Danny Garcia is a PBC guy, but something was being worked out, to get those fights from happening. And both those guys turned it down. So we're stuck with Ali. Now, I'm going to say this, and I want people to kind of realize what I'm saying. A lot of people on Twitter today, when this fight was made official, completely and utterly shitted on Cotto and Golden Boy for making this be the fight of his last fight of his career. But what I want to point out to some people is Floyd Mayweather had 2 layups his last 2 fights. Conor McGregor, Andre Berto. Those are layups. So for people to criticize Miguel Cotto, you have to kind of look at it from this aspect. He's earned that right. He's earned the right. He's going to be fighting a live body in Saddam Ali, but looking at Ali, there's nothing that he possesses that makes me say Cotto's in trouble. Nothing he possesses. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful tone or matter, but it just is what it is. I mean, his body of work, it just speaks for that. So I don't get the complete I get the criticism, but Cotto's owed this. He's owed a layup because the guy's career, he's fought any and everybody you could think of, throughout his career. You name him, he's fought him. He's fought. We can go down the line here. He's got guys like DeMarcus Corley on his resume, Randall Bailey, Paulie Malignaggi, Carlos Quintana, Zab Judah, Shane Mosley, Alfonso Gomez, Margarito twice, one time with loaded gloves, Joshua Clottey, Manny Pacquiao, Ricardo Mayorga, Floyd Mayweather, our guest tonight, Austin Trout, Sergio Martinez, Sanul Canelo Alvarez, and he was even, I'm thinking here, was probably going to be willing to fight Triple G in his last fight if Triple G would have won. Or even Canelo in a rematch. That was kind of what was being targeted. So, he's fought a lot of fighters. He's fought and given his all in every fight. Now, did he act a diva sometimes after fights after losing? Of course, that's Miguel Cotto being Miguel Cotto. But I can't completely throw him under the bus for this decision and this fight. I can't. Because, he was willing to fight a Mikey Garcia. Now, and I want people to realize something here. I know people are going to say, well, Mikey Garcia's a much smaller guy. I've talked to Mikey Garcia here on the show. Mikey may seem smaller, 135. Moving up to 154 wouldn't have been that much of a big deal for him. He probably wouldn't have came in at 154, but he wouldn't have had to cut a lot of weight at all for a fight. So he would have came in, probably around 145 or so. But Mikey's not a guy who's going to come in overly large because that makes him lose his advantage. Mikey's would have been willing to fight and box him. So I'm not going to diss him for that there. Danny Garcia is a guy who fights at 147. 154 is 7 more pounds. So, and again, we have to realize Miguel Cotto's never been a huge guy. I mean, Miguel Cotto's a small guy. He's listed at 5'7". I've seen him up close. That may be somewhat of a stretch. Thinking more 5'5", no disrespect, but he's never been known as a uber large guy. So, him fighting somebody who's moving up in weight will not be that big of a deal. So I'm not going to knock people for that. And I'm also not going to knock people saying, well, what about, Jesse Vargas isn't that great of a fight? Well, Vargas was a champion. Vargas he fought Manny Pacquiao. He fought Tim Bradley in a very weird fight. Now, the guy's a capable fighter, but again, if people don't want to sign a contract, they don't want to sign a contract. Now, the Lemieux fight may be a little bit different. Now, I'm hearing Miguel Maxey have turned down David Lemieux, but David Lemieux now, in turn, may have an opportunity to face Billy Joe Saunders for the WBO middleweight title. So we're hoping that fight happens. God, I hope for David Lemieux's case that fight happens because it's going to make more sense that way. But you can't completely knock Golden Boy and Miguel Cotto for this. It sounds like these guys legitimately tried to get bigger name opponents, and everybody was like, nah, I'm good. So I can't knock them. I can't be mad at them for the situation they've gotten themselves in. I just can't. I can't do it at all. So I don't know. It is what it is. With that, as much as people shit on it and say they hate the fight, we'll watch it. I mean, it is what it is. December 2nd, Madison Square Garden. It's his last fight. I'm going to watch. And the following week I'll come on and I'll praise the earth that Miguel Cotto has walked on because, he's given us his all for all these years. Hell of a fighter. Put on some great fights. He deserves to have a layup. Close to 17-year boxing career. Let him have his layup here. Let him have his victory lap. So I'm not going to knock him for this. It's as bad as it may sound on paper. I'm not going to knock him. So there's that. Now, get on to let's transition it this way. The Boxing Hall of Fame has now released its ballots out to the boxing writers who can vote on it and all that fancy stuff. Let me put this out here now. I am not a voter for the Boxing Hall of Fame. Okay, I will probably never be on the ballot for the International Boxing Hall of Fame to be a voter. I doubt that ever happens. Truth be told, I am an asshole. They probably will never let me be a part of something like that. Not to mention you have to pay dues, like literally pay money. I'm not paying to vote. What the hell? I'm not doing that. So never going to be a part of that. But it gives me an opportunity when I look at these lists and we think of fighters who've retired to think, say, hypothetically, who would we vote in if we had an opportunity to vote for the Boxing Hall of Fame? And, here are the options here on this year's ballot. Probably some of these names I'm going to completely and utterly destroy because I'm going to be completely honest with you. Some of these people I've never heard of. I've got a Yuri Arkambakovic, Paulie Ayala, Nigel Benn, Ivan Calderon. This can't be right. Satchadalada. Okay. Donald Curry, Chris Eubank, Leo Gamez, Ricky Hatton, Bernardo Hernandez, Julian Jackson, Vitaly Klitschko, Santos Baklar, Rocky Lockridge. We've got, who else is on here? Buddy McGirt, Miguel Laura, Henry Muskie, Demetrius Michael Chatsky, Sun Kill Moon, Michael Moore, Eric Morales, Vinny Pazienza, Roberto Roman, Samuel Serrano, Meldrick Taylor, Fernando Vargas, Wilfredo Vasquez, Rentapulsor Varapin, and Ronald Winky Wright. Like I said, some of these names I have no idea who these people are. I know as a boxing coach I'm supposed to know some of these people. Forgive me, I don't. I don't watch every fight there is. I don't want to watch a lot of international fights, especially in smaller weight classes. I just don't. I live a life. I'm sorry. Sorry, boxing fans. It happens that way. So some of these people I've never heard of. But the names that I have heard of, I do have an opinion on in regards to them being in the Hall of Fame. Let me make this clear. Vitaly Klitschko should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Period. That should be no argument there. There should be no question marks there. It should just happen. Klitschko, I think he's going to get underrated at the end of the day for what he's accomplished in his career. 45-2, 41 KOs, active fighter from 96 to 2012. And his two losses in his career, when you go back and you look at them, are questionable losses. Chris Bird, well, not questionable losses, but Chris Bird won the fight because Klitschko hurt his shoulder. Had thrown his towel, couldn't fight. So that was his first L. Lennox Lewis, cut him up and had a gnarly cut on Klitschko and made Klitschko had to, that stopped the fight. The cut was too bad. Fight had to be stopped. So, of course, those are his two L's, both of them for medical reasons. Bum shoulder, back cut. So it's not like he ever got dominated in any fight. Now, I will also say this with this caveat that for Klitschko, and really his brother as well, who will fall into this category in 5 years now that he's retired, for the Vitaly, he didn't have the greatest of all competition to face throughout his career. That's not his fault. He did what he was supposed to do against those opponents. Like I said, 45 wins, 41 of those are KOs. Oh, yeah, we're cracking open the Modelo's, by the way. I'm drinking now. So 41 of those are knockouts of his 45 wins. So what he did was he demolished the people they put in front of him. He was a WBO champion, made 2 title defenses there. He retired as a WBC champion with 9 consecutive defenses there as well. So it goes without saying that Vitaly should be a first ballot Hall of Famer amongst those guys listed. I'm saying that right now. So anybody has a problem with that, meet me on the parking lot. Now, here on the ballots, the voters can vote. They can pick 5 guys. but only 3 are going to actually get into the Hall of Fame. It's weird that they put a cap number on there like that because, quite honestly, I think it backlogs the voting and letting some of these people in. It's going to take some of these guys forever because some of these guys legitimately deserve to be in. And I'm going to make a case for Winky Wright. Now, this would maybe not be the most popular of opinions, but Winky Wright is a guy who I think will never get the credit he deserves for his career. And I say that in all seriousness. Winky Wright should be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm gonna run numbers down to you. I'm big on numbers here on Punch the Face Radio. Now, Winky Wright went 51-6-1, 25 KOs from 1990 to 2012. He won titles. 154. He was actually the lineal champion when he beat Shane Mosley back in 2004. So he's a lineal champion for a stretch there at 154. And like I said, won WBO, IBF, a couple of titles. He fought guys like Bernard Hopkins. He did lose to him. Jermaine Taylor, he fought to a draw, beat Shane Mosley, beat Felix Trinidad. I mean, he also fought a guy named Young Dick Tiger. If you don't believe me, Google it. Back in 1995. It's a real fighter, Young Dick Tiger. Swear to God, weirdest thing ever. So, Winky Wright was one of those guys that never really, I don't want to say he didn't cross over to the masses, because I think he did, especially towards the back half of his career. The Trinidad fight really helped make him a real star in boxing, but I also don't think that Winky got the credit he deserved. He did lose fights. He did lose against Fernando Vargas, who's also up for the Hall of Fame. But these are all fights that he were in. He lost a majority decision to him. Another fight that he lost was to Harry Simon, actually a year before losing to Fernando Vargas. It was another fight that was close on the card. So, I mean, it's not like one of those things where he got completely blown out and beat up in these fights. That was a majority decision. He lost for that, for a super welterweight title. So, I mean, he was willing to fight, and he always bounced back. He was one of those guys that this era of boxing that we're in right now, we don't have. He wasn't scared to let his O go. I mean, he beat Shane Mosley twice. He fought and beat him for the lineal championship, gave him a rematch, won a decision there. Right after that, I mean, he didn't take soft touches after that. So Shane Mosley twice, he then goes into Felix Trinidad, wins the decision there. Sam Solomon, and when Sam Solomon was actually young and actually better fighter, than what's sticking around right now, he went out, fought him, won a majority decision there. So I mean, the guy fought guys, and even after Sam Solomon, boom, he decides, you know what, I'm going to go up and weight, and I'm going to face Jermaine Taylor and try to win the lineal championship in the middleweight division. He ended up losing a draw there, but yet and still, he still fought. He gave Jermaine Taylor all that he could take. It is what it is. He fought guys like Ike Courtley, beat him. And I mean, like I said, the last few fights of his career were all losses. Bernard Hopkins, Paul Williams, and Peter Quillen. 3 fighters that you really can't say that those are bad losses. Bernard Hopkins is a Hall of Famer. Paul Williams, God bless him. Prior to his motorcycle accident, Paul Williams was going on to be something special and would have been something special really in boxing as well. And Peter Quillen, it is what it is with Peter Quillen. It is what it is. So, I'm making my plea to anyone who has a vote for Winky Wright. Vote Winky Wright into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Why not? There's shittier fighters that are in the Boxing Hall of Fame, and Winky Wright is definitely not a shitty fighter. Now, you look at a contemporary who's like a guy who beat Winky Wright, and Fernando Vargas. Fernando Vargas was 26-5. Not a bad fighter, but besides the Winky Wright fight, sometimes and always rise to the occasion in big fights. He does own a win over Ike Corte as well, but, he got knocked out against Felix Trinidad. He got knocked out against Oscar De La Hoya. He got knocked out twice by Shane Mosley. And then his last fight, he lost majority decision with Ricardo Mayorga. So, somebody like him, while I respect what he was able to do, I don't look at a Fernando Vargas as being Hall of Fame material. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I don't see him that way. I don't look at him in that same light. Now, another guy that's a little bit more interesting in regards to being in the Hall of Fame is one Erik Morales. Now, this was one that when I looked at the numbers, because he's a name that jumped out at me, was what did Erik Morales do in his career that could earn him the nod of being in the Boxing Hall of Fame? And when you look at it, for a guy like Erik Morales, 52-9, 36 KOs, fought from 93 to 2012. For Morales, it's a little bit different. Now, I look at it for some of the fights he was a part of that were, I dare say, legendary, because I don't want to make these fights seem like they were bigger than what they were. But let's face it, he was in some hell of a great fights. You've got Marco Antonio Barrera, those guys fighting each other. That was a hell of a series of fights we saw those guys do. 3 of them where Morales won 1 out of the 2. And even the 2 that he lost weren't like he were blown out. Unanimous decision or majority decision, not bad losses. He actually owns a victory over Manny Pacquiao, which is something a lot of people can't say. He owns a victory over Manny Pacquiao. Unfortunately, he fought Manny Pacquiao 2 more times and got knocked out. But he dared to be great and willing to take those fights. This was a guy who had lost 4 straight fights. He lost to Zahir Rahim, 2 knockout losses to Manny Pacquiao, and then a unanimous decision loss to David Diaz. At that point in 2017, a lot of people thought he was going to retire. Came back, fought some fights down in Mexico, got his confidence back up. Fought Marcos Maidana to a good fight. It was a majority decision he lost there. He also went on to fight Danny Garcia twice, and unfortunately his last fight of his career got knocked out. But he was still willing to fight some of the better fighters and younger guys of his generation. I mean, he fought them tough. And even in his younger days, he fought a lot of other great fighters, other champions. Wayne McCullough's one of them he had fought as well when he was coming up and younger, was able to win decision there. But Morales, one thing we'll always remember about him the most is his fighting spirit. And, I hate to use the stereotype about Mexican fighters and what have you, but it's just so true. He embodies that. He is just tough as nails, man. This guy has the proverbial ball. He is a fighter. And that's what I like about him and why I personally think he should be in the Boxing Hall of Fame for the voting for that. Now, so, those are the 3 cases I made. So like I said, you can vote. Ballot people can do 5, but only 3 are going to get in. So, let me pick out here another one that I thought that you can make a legitimate argument for being in the Hall of Fame, and I really hope he does make it. And that's Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton is, maybe one of the better British fighters over the last 20 years. That came over and has crossed over here to the United States and has fought. And his resume, not a bad one. And again, he fought a lot of different guys. Ricky Hatton fought from 97 to 2012, went 45-3, 32 knockouts amongst those. Now, what you have to point out is his 3 losses aren't horrifically bad losses, but they're also, they're not bad losses, but just kind of the way they happened was bad. Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, and then his last fight of his career against kind of a relative unknown in Bolasanti Shinvenko. Forgive me. It was one of those fights that really, Ricky Hatton was supposed to win. That was going to be a big comeback fight, and he lost it. And, Shlevenko or Saudi, however you enunciate his name, he hasn't fought since 2015. He spun that fight went over Ricky Hatton to get him a fight against Kell Brook, which he lost, but he ended up, winning some solid fights throughout the back end of his career, which was weird. Oddly enough, the two guys he lost to was Paulie Malignaggi and Kell Brook. So, not a bad loss, but not a big name loss that Ricky Hatton lost to. But the two other losses he suffered were knockout losses as well. The Floyd Mayweather knockout loss, which we all saw him. He get knocked out, he ended up hitting his head in the paneling there in the corner. Once Floyd hit him, Floyd moved, and Ricky Hatton just fell right into the corner. The Manny Pacquiao knockout, he ended up falling right perfectly in the middle of the ring by the Rockstar logo, which was crazy. Those are bad knockout losses. I will openly admit that. But Ricky Hatton, went on. He was a lineal champion, IBF champion, WBA champion, IBO champion. Fought a lot of great fighters. Maybe his most memorable work, especially the most memorable win, the Costa Zoo win for me back in 2005. That was really his coming out party. He fought, really after that, he exclusively fought here in the States. After being over the UK for so long, he finally made his way over here to the U.S. Beat guys like, Juan Urango. He beat when Juan Urango was actually a big deal. We thought Urango was going to be something special. This guy just looked like a giant monster and was knocking guys out. This is one of the first fights for Ricky Hatton over here in the U.S., and he just made him look like a novice. Hatton also beat Jose Luis Castillo when he was still not in his prime, but not all that out of it either. Still a good fighter, still a legitimate challenge for Ricky Hatton, and Ricky Hatton knocked him out. So, Hatton has fought guys, and Paulie Malignaggi, not to take nothing away from him as well. Luis Collazo is another guy who's, oddly enough, who's still fighting and active, which is very strange that, we're talking about guys in the Hall of Fame and other guys that are still fighting, 5 years later. He beat Collazo. So, he's got a decent resume to where you can say, all right, I can see Ricky Hatton being in the Hall of Fame. I could see that. But, again, I have no voting power. I would love to see him in, but if I had to pick 3 for this year, it's got to be Winky Wright, Klitschko, and Morales. Guys like Julian Jackson, I could see. Chris Eubank, I can see. Nigel Benn, I can see. Vinny Pazienza, I can also see. Mildred Taylor. So, there are guys there that you can make the argument for. Michael Moore's an interesting case as well, as far as, being in Hall of Fame and getting that nod. That, Michael Moore was a good fighter, and I think it's one of those things as well. We'll never really appreciate him for what he did as a fighter until it's too late. And I thought he did an excellent job as a fighter years ago. Heavyweight. Obviously, he's going to be remembered mostly for the knockout loss he suffered to George Foreman, but we have to keep in mind that he was a former light heavyweight champion, moved up to heavyweight, and he had some successful runs. And to his credit, he retired. Last fight was in 2008, and he was not one of those guys who stuck around past his prime. He fought fights. He couldn't get any big fights lined up with any champions, and he called it a career, and that's a good thing because we sometimes see guys stay around too long. You look at his resume, his losses. David Tua, that's when David Tua was a beast. Evander Holyfield obviously was Holyfield, and George Foreman. Those are the guys he's lost against. And also in Estelio Castillo, the U.S. unanimous decision too back in 2004. He was a fringe heavyweight. He was kind of one of those things that he was a Cuban heavyweight, which was kind of a rarity in itself. But never really was able to piece it together. Ended up getting some bigger fights as his career went on, but never was able to put it together to do anything big in regards to the heavyweight division. But Michael Moore's resume is not bad. He's one of those guys that I don't know if people ever give him the nod that he deserves to get in. So it's always interesting talk because it's always going to be in the eye of the beholder in regards to who people think should or shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Another one of those guys on the list was here, Chris Eubank. His son, wow. I'm just going to say this now. I'm quickly becoming, and will openly admit, I am a Chris Eubank Jr. fan. The kid, he's putting it together. And I kind of wondered, after, the stumble earlier in his career against Billy Joe Saunders in the middleweight division. Granted, it was a split decision loss. So it wasn't a horrible loss, but maybe he was biting off a little bit more than he could chew. That was almost 4 years ago. And he has grown since then. Now, he's not fighting elite competition, right now. But he's a part of the World Boxing Super Series, and what he is doing is he's beating the opponents in front of him. And as a fighter, that's what you have to do. You have to beat the opponents that they put in front of you. And that's a good thing. He's doing everything the correct way. He's going out, beating the opponents, talking his talk after the fights, and he's looking good. So, as time is rolling on as we get through the World Boxing Super Series, he is going to become more and more of a star that I don't know if people completely understand what he could blossom into. This tournament, it's getting a buzz here in the States. We really wish it would get more of a television platform here in the States than what it's getting. It really isn't, unfortunately. If you have the Encore Network on Dish Network, you may be able to see the fights. But it's weird. But he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's beating the opponents that are being put in front of him. And right now, I'm not sure which winner he gets. But we have 2 more fights left in the super middleweight division there for the World Boxing Super Series. George Groves fights Jamie Cox here this weekend. And then in 2 weeks, we have kind of a guy that a lot of people are saying somewhat of a sleeper here, Rob Brandt against Jorgen Braheimer. Kind of a sleeper pick. People picking Rob Brandt. So we shall see. I want to say the Brandt Braheimer winner faces Chris Eubank. The Groves Cox winner fights Callum Smith. I think the things are kind of lined up in the tournament bracket to where they're hoping it's George Groves versus Chris Eubank Jr., which would be huge over in the UK and would really be big for both fighters as well from that degree. But I'm really becoming a fan of him, and I thought, he went out and he handled his business here last weekend against Ivan Yamandarm. How do you enunciate that? Whatever. He was able to retain his IBO Super Middleweight Championship. Knocked him out, made it look relatively easy. He fought a very calm fight, and he seems like he's putting it together and he's understanding what this stage could mean for his career going forward. Winning the Ali Trophy is great for him, which is what the winner's going to get. But let's face it, at the end of the day, to really make it big and make a huge impact in boxing, we got to see him over here in the U.S. That's just all it is to it. We have to see him here in the U.S. sooner than later. I think that's one of those things to where boxing fans, they'll want it. They'll want to see him over here, and they'll want to see him fight. They'll want to see if he's as good as advertised. And I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. I really do. I really do think he'll be the next big thing at 168. And if he isn't, he's going to make a lot of money in between time before he gets exposed. So, I don't know. I think we really need to see him over in the United States once the tournament is over here in 2018. So that's just my take on it, but we shall see. Feel free, while we still have time here on the show, to call in if you're listening live at area code 477-3165. Tweet me at BrandonP2TF. If you're listening to the show on Blog Talk, make sure you subscribe on Blog Talk or subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher. Just search Punch to the Face Radio on any format, and you'll be able to listen to the show anytime on demand. Now, a little bit of bad news. Now, last week we had Carl Moretti from Top Rank here on the show, and we were really hyped about the card here in a month on ESPN, the next Top Rank card here on November 11th. Jesse Magdaleno was going to be defending his title, and he was going to be the headline, going to be the main event, and he ended up suffering a left wrist injury in sparring, and he is actually now pulled out of the fight against Cesar Juarez. So that fight is now off. Now, it was slated to be the main event, and it was going to be a triple header. It was going to air here on ESPN on the 11th. Now, the show's still going to go on. It's still going to feature the two bouts that were going to be on there earlier. Artur Beterbiev was going to be fighting Enrico. Jesus Christ, these names: Enrico Kogling and Mike Reed versus Jose Ramirez. Those two fights are still going to air. It will be interesting to see if they end up adding a third fight, they moving something up on the undercard to the television portion of the ESPN card, or if they'll just go with these two fights. The Beterbiev fight is going to be for a vacant title that was relinquished here since Andre Ward is retired. And with Ramirez and Mike Reed, you've got two undefeated fighters, really the crossroads of their career to see who's going to be a contender and who still needs to work their way up. So that card's still going to go on a schedule, just minus Jesse Magdaleno, which is a shame because, again, that was a fight I was really looking forward to. Was really hoping to see Jesse fight a guy that I was really excited about. But, we know injuries happen, and it's better he, exit out and not try to fight injured and do more harm to himself with an injury, especially we're talking wrist and hand and all that. That's never a good thing. You can't have those kind of injuries going into a fight. Things typically don't end well for fighters with that. So that's a shame that fight won't happen. Another thing's kind of a shame that, me and Adam talked a little bit about here last week on the fall fight preview show. Abner Mares versus Leo Santa Cruz also goes down this weekend. That'll air on Fox. It's a shame the two guys aren't fighting each other. Honestly, I could care less about their fights they had this weekend. But, this is boxing. And we know in boxing, anything can happen. We've seen guys lose fights they shouldn't have. And right now, that could be the situation. We've got two guys who are letting a fight simmer, if you will. And what happens if one of them were to lose? Or one of them look really awful? Is the demand going to be there to see Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares? If one, if not both, look like shit here this Saturday. This is a game that these guys are playing right now that it can end up being very, very risky. And I don't know who to really point the finger at, who to blame for this. Some saying Leo Santa Cruz. He's the kind of one who kind of pushed this, not wanting to fight right now, wanting to fight Abner at another time. It was a majority decision loss that Abner suffered to Leo Santa Cruz. It was an entertaining fight here 2 years ago, but that was just it 2 years ago. Both these guys have now only, for Abner Mares, this is going to be his first fight of 2017. He didn't fight at all before this. And only fought once in 2016. Again, this is what happens with these PBC fighters. Abner's a guy who's had a lot of positive energy for years. As he was being built up by Golden Boy, we saw him fight a lot of solid fights. Beat guys like Victor Archinian, Joseph Mbuko twice. Did suffer the knockout loss to Johnny Gomez. But, he's bounced back once in fights and before losing to Leo Santa Cruz. But, again, the guy is too young not to be fighting multiple times. 31 years old. There's no excuse for it being October and you haven't fought yet in 2017. To Leo Santa Cruz's credit, now he did fight a lot more in years past, but now he's getting that Al Heyman money and doesn't have to. This is his second fight of the year. He did fight win a majority decision over Carl Frampton here in January. And that was after they had back-to-back that's their back-to-back fights. Frampton won the first one. Possibly a trilogy could be on the way. I'm one of those people. I really wasn't all that excited about their fights. I really haven't been excited for a Leo Santa Cruz fight in really some time. His fights were starting to get a little bit boring to me. I really wasn't all that happy with the Abner Maris fight. I know a lot of other people really enjoyed it. I didn't. I didn't find it to be that great. So, again, it's these two guys, they need each other kind of in a way to maybe build that buzz back up. Hopefully they both come out unscathed here this weekend and they can figure something out and fight first quarter of 2018. But honestly, if I don't see the fight, I'm fine with it. Just not really overly enthused with either guy. From their time as Golden Boy fighters to their time now as Heyman fighters, it just seems like the switch has been turned off on them, and I'm just not really all that enthused by them. So it is what it is with that. So we'll see. So that'll be on Fox. That's early in the evening, and then after that you can switch to Showtime for the triple header at 154 with those three title fights. So there it is. Yeah. I don't know. Not all that enthused by the Fox card. So it's one of the things you see, you don't. So Mike, we got some. I'm trying to read some news here. So right now, nothing's been made official, but Main Events, who promotes Sergey Kovalev, is right now petitioning the WBO to have his fight against Vasily Shabransky here that goes down here November 25th to be for the vacant WBO title now that Andre Ward is retired. We don't know when that decision will be made, but when we get word, we will obviously let you know here on Punch the Face Radio. Now, like I said, Beterbiev is already fighting for one of the vacant belts. The other ones have yet to be decided as to what's going to happen with those. So Ward, Ward, the other belts have already been spoken for. So, WBO champion is Dmitry Bulev. He's now the full champion for the WBA. Adonis Stevens is the WBC champion. Like I said, right now, WBO, IBF are vacated. I know Andre Ward is also the ring champion, which is still recognized, but we don't know who will actually be the ring champion now. Typically, we don't see that with Al Heyman fighters, so that is neither here nor there. So, I don't know. Interesting. Light heavyweight's going to be interesting going into 2018, especially here with Kovalev fighting at the end of the year, Southern Cabrera fighting at the end of the year. Adonis Stevenson may get a fight before the year is out as well. Bulev is also going to be fighting before the year is out. So we'll have a clearer idea of what we're looking at here at 175 for 2018 by the end of this year. Interesting division. Anytime somebody retires, it throws a lot of things for a loop. It throws a lot of things in flux, and that's what's happening right now. So, hopefully, for Kovalev's sake, I do believe Kovalev's the best guy at 175 now that Andre Ward is gone, but we shall see. So, really, that's all we got for this week. This is kind of like fourth or third week in a row where we've had no callers call in, which is kind of strange. Last week's show with me and Adam, we did the whole show. No one called in. Kind of odd. So, again, if you're listening to the show recorded, listen to us live every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. Punch the Face Radio, part of the Blog Talk Network. You can call in, be a part of the show. But, yeah, that's really all I got. It'll be more action here next week. We're actually having some fights that matter. It's kind of been a little bit slow the last couple of weeks with a lot of fights being internationally and no big fights. But it'll definitely pick up here with the triple header here on Showtime, and then obviously as well the Fox card with Santa Cruz and Abner Mares fighting in separate bouts, which is a shame. So we'll talk about that. We may also have some guests here on the show as well. We'll also talk some George Groves versus Jimmy Cox, which ought to be really interesting as well. That's going to be on tape delay here in the U.S., so I will definitely try to find a way to watch it live, so I don't have to watch tape delay. So we'll talk about that next week. We'll also preview a fight that Adam hates, but we both kind of love it because it's just pure cannibalism. Gabriel Rosado versus Glenn Tapia. We'll talk about that fight here next week because that goes down here on ESPN presented by Gold Boy. So we'll talk about that. Also, your tweets and your comments throughout the week here in boxing. So, again, make sure you follow me on Twitter, BrandonP2T. Excuse me, BrandonP2TF, punchtheface.com. Also, as well, I would be remiss if I say don't also follow my co-host, Adam Abramowitz at SN Boxing, also SaturdayNightBoxing.com. A big thank you again to our guest, Austin No Doubt Trout. Follow him on social media as well at No Doubt Trout. Saturday nights, Showtime, triple header. He's going for a title. Wish him the best of luck with that. So definitely tune into that. As always, man, I want everyone to stay safe, stay blessed, love one another because it's the only way we're going to get through this. Until next Wednesday, I am Brandon Stubbs, and I am out.